Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Demczak, and our goal for this show is to encourage you to take the next step in your leadership journey by examining the high performance habits of current and former athletes, successful business minds, spiritual thought leaders, and lifestyle entrepreneurs. I'm super excited about our guest today that we have on the show. His name is Austin Hatch, and Austin really has an incredible story. He has experienced a lot of things in his life, and in a lot of ways, what he's been through and what he's encountered is pretty unimaginable to understand understand the gravity of what he's gone through. And so on the show today, you're going to hear us kind of discuss some things that are pretty, I would say, hard for us to talk about and discuss, but in the midst of trials and tragedies that he's had to overcome in his life, I think you'll see a message of hope. And I hope you're able to see that message. And I think having him on the show today, I was really excited just because he's so vulnerable about his story and what he's had to overcome. And I think you really do see the message of hope in his story through the trials he's had to overcome. And so we jumped right in the interview today. We jumped right in. And I think you guys will all really benefit greatly from hearing Austin. And so without further ado, Austin Hatch. So I want to kind of rewind and go back to you growing up, back when you were younger. What was life like growing up as a kid? And you loved basketball your whole life. What was your upbringing like?
Yeah, I was born to an incredible family in Fort Wayne, Indiana. You know, my dad was a doctor, and my mom stayed at home with us and tried to keep us in line. And it was always a challenge. I was always running around, playing sports, doing anything and everything I could to stay active. And like the typical 2, 3, 4-year-old kid, right? And unfortunately, when I was 8 years old, my family and I were involved in a plane crash on September 1st, 2003. And my mom and my siblings, my older sister and younger brother, tragically did not survive. But my dad and I did. Obviously grieved their loss tremendously and, pushed each other, helped each other get through, helped each other overcome it. My dad was remarried. And then 6 years after he was remarried, we were tragically involved in another plane crash that claimed the lives of my mom and my second mother. I never use the term stepmom. I think she was my second mom, if you will. And tragically, they passed away. And so I'm blessed to be alive. I obviously miss my family tremendously, but I think I have the opportunity to honor them every single day by how I live, by how I treat people, and by how I honor my now wife. So.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. And how, I guess, going back to the first event that occurred, as a young person, how did you react to that? How do you even accept that even happened? How do you cope with that?
Yeah, well, my dad and I we were always really tight, and we really became close, even closer, and became best friends, became like brothers almost, right? Obviously, he was my dad, but our relationship felt like almost like brothers. And, we did everything together, played golf, played basketball, did everything, went on trips. And yeah, and obviously with my second family too, I was forced to adjust to a new normal early on. And yeah, I was really young. And so, I was only 8 years old when everything happened the first time. And so I was obviously, when you're that young, you watch your dad's every move, right? And I just saw him, and he pushed through it and overcame it. Obviously, he was married to my mom for 20 years, and then they were high school sweethearts. And then, obviously losing her, I can't imagine now that I'm married. I can't imagine what that's like. But he pushed through it for me, and I pushed through it for him. And we just found a way to overcome it. So.
Absolutely. And what role did obviously you played sports, you love sports. What role did basketball play in your life after the first crash happened? What was that like in your life with your relationship with your dad and moving forward from that?
Yeah. Well, basketball, not that I kind of gave me a way to sort of get away from things, and not that I didn't think about it when I was playing, but, kind of just gave me an escape, if you will. And yeah, so I always loved the game, and started to get pretty good and was working hard at my game. And then, fortunately, the work paid off. Coach Beyond called and offered me a scholarship to play at Michigan, and I accepted right then and there. And then Tragically 9 days later, the unthinkable happened again. So, but yeah, I think that, sports in general teach us things that, we may not realize at the time, but the lessons we learn from competing, from working to be the best we can be, the lessons we learn from overcoming challenges in games. I think that's obviously not the same as overcoming challenges in life, but by overcoming challenges in games, that sort of prepares you in a way to overcome challenges in life. Because after the first one and the second one, obviously not diminishing the loss of my family, but I looked at, okay, I can't control this. The other team is shooting really well, metaphorically speaking. Obviously, tragically, my family is no longer with me, but I know I can control how I respond by if you're down 10 at halftime, you don't just give up, right? You don't just say, "Yeah, game over, you guys win. Better luck to us next time." You come back in the second half with everything you got and give it to them, right? Mm-hmm. And I kind of approach things the same way towards life after the first and the second action. I was like, you know what? Here's a bad break, but I know we can control how we respond to it. And yeah, I mean, I think that you gotta and not only sports, but just you got to set goals for yourself, right? After the first one, it was obviously I was so young and I was, trying to do everything my dad did and trying to be like him. And then after the second one, I didn't have that example to follow, but he set that example for me after the first one. So he basically showed me, here's how you overcome this. In case you ever have to do this on your own someday, make sure you pay attention to what I'm doing because, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, tragically, I had to do it on my own. Obviously, I had so many people helping me along the way, family, friends, doctors, therapists, nurses, everyone. But yeah, my dad showed me what it takes to overcome adversity. And yeah, and obviously sports are a big part of that too. But I think we need to watch. It's really important to watch what the best are doing. Watch how they do things. And there's nothing wrong with stealing moves from the best guys, right? I mean, you play quarterback, right?
Yep. I was a bench warmer, so don't give me too much credit there.
Hey, you know what? I mean, I scored one official point in my college career. So, hey, you know what? And I'd like to think, the managers on the team, they don't get any credit, but that I'd like to think that they have a role too. So everyone on the team has a role. And there's nothing, what I was going to say though, there's nothing wrong with watching what the best do and stealing moves from them. Right.
Absolutely. So, tell us about your history and your love of Michigan, because you're a sophomore. Coach Beeline is at one of your games. You drop 30 points, 16 rebounds. You go off. That's when he offers you that scholarship. What was it like to be offered to your dream school and then to end up going to Michigan?
Yeah, well, it really was a dream come true. So my Michigan's been in my family for years, so I'm technically a third generation legacy. So both my grandpas went there, my mom went there, my dad did research at Michigan before going to medical school at Wake Forest, and so I mean I had season tickets to my family had season tickets to Michigan football growing up. So I was born in October. I think I went to my first football game in November.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, so I think it started early, and yeah, it was always my dream to play in Michigan, and I never knew that. I mean, I set the goal of playing in Michigan someday, and I didn't know that I'd be good enough. And fortunately, Coach Beeline saw that I had a role in his program and thought I could help him, and yeah, he offered me a scholarship. It was a dream come true, and yeah, that's why I had thought about that my whole life, and I talked about it with my dad about going to Michigan, and so I accepted the scholarship about 1:45 in the afternoon on June 15th, 2011. And Coach called me and offered me. And then after he offered, I accepted. And then he said, "Are you sure you want to sleep on this? You want to think about it, talk to your family?" I'm like, "Nah, we've already talked about this for a long time." So yeah, it was a dream come true.
That's awesome. So you're on cloud nine, June 15th, 9 days later, after you'd committed to Michigan, the second tragedy happens. And just to kind of rewind and go back to that, you're in a medically induced coma for 6 weeks, and you wake up to some of the worst news that anyone could receive.
Mm-hmm.
So for so many of us, it's hard to even relate or to even understand what you went through. I guess putting it into words, what was that like for you to have to relearn? Can you just go into depth about that, about what that was like for you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was just another challenge. Obviously losing my family is awful, and that's unimaginable. I can't really even put that into words. But like as far as the physical rehabilitation, and as well as the cognitive rehabilitation and the emotional rehabilitation at that, it was just another challenge. That's all I saw it as. Here's something I'm trying to overcome. Here's something I'm trying to accomplish. And I thought, it's like I was saying about sports. You got a team that you're gonna play on Saturday. They're better than you, but you're gonna do everything in your power to beat them, right? This traumatic, you can't control what they do, but you can always control what you do, right? I couldn't control my circumstances. I couldn't control what happened to me, but I knew I had complete control over how I chose to respond. And I think it's easy to get wrapped up in adversity and get wrapped up in the events. Oh, why did this happen to me? I don't deserve this. You know what? Oh man, this should have happened this should have happened to someone else. Why did it happen to me of all people? But I think that when things happen to us, we have a decision to make. We can either decide to overcome it, or we can, it's easier to just let it's a bad break. It is what it is. I'm going to do my best to overcome this, but yeah, if I don't, it's not that big of a deal. But if you're working for something bigger than yourself, if you're working for the team, if you're working to honor those who invested in you and honor those who had, who have helped you along the way, made things possible for you that you can do for yourself. I think when we're working for something bigger than ourselves, I don't think there's anything that we can overcome. So.
Absolutely. And once you got through that process, there had to be days where you thought like, how do I get through this? How do I move forward? You had to relearn so many different things. Was basketball and was getting back on the court and doing that something like mentally, do you know that you were going to do that again? Where were you mentally as far as the game of basketball, where you're at in life at that point?
Yeah, well, basketball was obviously, I was trying to get back to being able to play on the court again, but it was relearning how to live life. When I was hurt so bad, I had to relearn how to do everything: how to eat, take care of myself, walk, talk, do everything, right? And I always had the mindset, always had the mentality that it's not if, it's when. And it's not if I learn how to walk again, it's not if I learn how to run, it's not if I learn how to shoot, it's not if I, it's when. I'm going to work too hard for this not to happen, for me not to overcome this. And I think that, yeah, a lot of times it's easy to say, oh, it'd be nice if this went my way. It'd be nice if I got this break of work. It'd be nice if my coworkers helped me out, or it'd be nice if you know what I mean? But
Right.
I think if we're willing to work for something, if we're willing to work hard enough, it's never if something will happen, it's when it'll happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you went through that entire time. And then for your senior season, after you had fully rehabbed, you went to train with Rashid Hazard, and going through that entire process. You're quoted telling him, you're asking him, do you want to be part of a miracle in this story? And do you want to be part of this? Yeah. Can I speak to that and that whole training period with him?
Yeah, well, I didn't ask him that. I didn't. My coach at Loyola asked him. So my coach in California asked Rashid if he wanted to be a part of a miracle, and so I'm not. I wasn't saying I'm not the self-proclaimed miracle, but
Right.
yeah. So,
but you
yeah,
are. You are.
I do what I can. But yeah, it's just like I said, it's just another challenge, and it's great to have Coach Haz helping me along the way. Pretty cool that he, worked with Kobe and stuff like that and helped him get better after I think Kobe tore his meniscus maybe 10 years ago or something, towards the end of his career, maybe like 2008 or 9 or something like that. And yeah, it was cool. It was cool. And yeah, he was really good, helped me get a lot better. And it was, basketball, as much as it was about basketball, it was also about, like there was rehab, just like general rehab in it too. The coordination, the balance, the timing, the footwork, and all like all the stuff we worked on, yeah, it helped me get some of my game back a little bit. I mean, obviously I never got back to the level, never got back to even remotely close to what I once was, but that all helped me, get back to the point of where I can, live a healthy lifestyle. So.
That's awesome. And best-selling author Angela Duckworth, she's done all these studies and she's a great researcher, and she talks about success isn't tied to where you went to school, your GPA, your good looks, your family background. What the top people who are successful in life and in business, and they have grit. And how would you say grit has, the things you've been through, how has grit played a part in that?
Yeah. So Angela Duckworth's done some great work on it, and I paid attention, I've studied a little bit of what she's done. She says that grit's passion and perseverance for very long-term goals, that grit's about sticking with your future day in and day out, not for a week or a month, but that grit's about sticking with your future for years, and it's about working really hard to make that future that you see, make that future reality. That's true. I like that definition. But I think grit also applies to the short term too. I think grit applies to everything we do every single day. And so when I speak, I've been fortunate to have a number of opportunities to speak to companies, organizations, schools, charities, what have you. And I define grit. So it's an acronym. There are 4 key components to it. The 4 letters, GRIT. There are 4 key components, but I think it's driven by knowing our purpose, having a greater reason for why we do what we do. Because I think if we're doing something just for ourselves, at some point in life, we're going to hit some form of adversity that's a lot bigger and tougher than we are, that'll make us quit if we don't have a driving force for why we do what we do, right? But if we're working for if we're working for the team, the company, the organization, our family, our friends, whoever it may be, I think if we're working for something bigger than ourselves, I don't think there's anything we can't overcome. So grit's driven by knowing our purpose, and the 4 key components that knowing our purpose drives are the growth mindset, the G in grit's growth mindset, which views adversity as opportunity, which views, this setback isn't meant to define me. It's meant to refine me. I can grow from this. So the R in grit is resilience. The R stands for resilience, and the resilience is a decision. The R stands for the decision to be resilient. We're not a product of our circumstances. We're a product of how we decide to respond, of how we choose to respond. And the I in grit stands for integrity. And to me, in the context of being gritty, in the context of overcoming any challenge, and actually in the context of achieving anything, I think integrity integrity is following through on our commitments. It's about doing what we said we would do, especially when our circumstances change. It's about, staying true to our words, staying true to what we commit to, despite the change in our circumstances. I commit something to someone, and then something else comes up that gets in the way. I still owe it to that person to follow through on what I told him or her I was going to do, right? Or what I told myself I was going to do.
And when you talk about integrity, your coach in college, Coach Beeline, what were the things you saw in him? Because I've heard you say that he visited you in the hospital, things like that. What was the impact that he had on your life like?
Yeah, well, our core values at Michigan are passion, unity, diligence, integrity, appreciation, and accountability, right? Integrity is one of them. And Coach Beeline doesn't just preach that. He doesn't tell us all, or he didn't tell us all, hey, you guys need to have integrity. And then he would go take shortcuts, and right? He would always did things the right way, always showed us an example of what it looks like to live with integrity, of what it looks like to, have integrity and still be extremely successful. Yeah. And I think that, in the context of my story, him coming to visit me in the hospital when I couldn't walk, and him telling me, I can't wait to coach you someday, Austin, or honoring my scholarship. A scholarship is huge, right? You know that.
Yeah.
And just he didn't follow through on his commitment to me based only on what I could do for him. Obviously, he expects that when he offers someone a scholarship, he expects them to perform. But, because of the circumstances, he committed something to me, and I committed something to him. He committed himself to me, and I committed myself to him. And he made it clear that as long as we were both still around, his word is good. And I think that's something we can all learn from. Obviously, there are more examples than that, but I think
that's great.
I'm going to say the last letter in grit is T, and T stands for the team first mentality, thinking about the we before the me, thinking about, what can we do to help the team? What can we do to help our teammates, our coworkers, our families, our friends? And, if we have a great team around us, that'll help us overcome adversity, but we got to help our teammates overcome adversity too. So
that's great.
That's essentially the 5-minute spiel of the message.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think it's so fitting that you have the chance to speak with companies and teams and organizations, nonprofits, because there are truly so many parallels between your story and lessons in business and being an entrepreneur and things like that. And so, I heard John Gordon, who we're both friends with, talk about how, in life, you can't listen to yourself. You have to talk to yourself, because when you listen to yourself, you can hear all the reasons why, you can't accomplish something, or you hear all the critics. But when you talk to yourself, you can, fuel your mind with positivity or Bible verses or encouragement or things like that. I guess going through all the things you've been through on the toughest days, I mean, you of anyone, no one would, I mean, you could easily say, you know what, I'm going to give up, or I have every reason to give up, but you haven't done that in any part of your life. And so on the hardest days that you have, the hardest of the hard days, what do you cling to, and what are the things that help you move forward during those dark times?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, there are those days, and or there were those days for me, especially when I was going through my recovery and everything. But, if, like I said, with that team first mentality, if we're working for something bigger than ourselves, we're not going to quit. If we're working. So, for example, in the basketball context, for example, you got five guys playing defense. If the ball is in the opposite corner and your guys is on the other side of the court, your teammate is expecting you to be there to cut off the baseline and to sacrifice your body and take a charge, right? Even if you don't feel like it, you're going to be there for them. And it's the same thing with anything. I mean, if we're working for something bigger than ourselves, I don't think it's very hard to keep moving forward, because life's going to happen. There are things that are going to come up at the worst possible time. And you obviously we never wish adversity on ourselves or on anyone else, but like I said, with that growth mindset, I know that. Yeah, I don't wish that. It'd be nice if this didn't happen, but since it did, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to learn and grow and get better. And this, what, I may not enjoy going through this right now, but after I overcome this and however long it takes, I'm going to look back on this. But you know what? I'm glad I had to go through that, because it taught me things that I wouldn't have learned otherwise. You know what I mean? So
wow, that's powerful.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I watched your guys' wedding video, your beautiful wife, Abby. And for anyone listening, you might need a Kleenex to get through that wedding video. But I guess how did you guys meet? And she also played at Michigan as well. How did you guys meet, and what's marriage been like?
Yeah. So we met in Poli Sci 101. She walked in late, and I kind of flagged her down, kind of said, "Hey, babe, I got a seat next to me," and just kind of waved her over. And so she came and sat next to me, and then we hit it off, and then started dating a little while later, and then 3.5 years later we got engaged, or 2.5 years later we got engaged, and then 3.5 years later we got married. She's incredible, and she was an amazing athlete, a lot better athlete than I would have been. Maybe I would have been good, but she was a 3-time All-American, so I don't know if it would have been that level, but so she's great. We push each other to get better, to overcome things, and we work for each other. And it's like I was talking about, that team first mentality. You do it, you don't do it for yourself. You got to, sometimes you just got to do what the team needs, right? And
absolutely.
Sometimes I'll get home and there'll be bags of trash outside the door, and that I have accepted my role as taking the trash down to the dumpsters, right, or the trash cans, right?
Amen. I'm there with you.
Hey, obviously I'm not in the car thinking, oh man, I wish I'm really looking forward to taking a trip, but sometimes you just got to do what the team needs, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So yeah, and I think the same is true in life. There's going to be things that we don't want to do, that we wish they would just do them for themselves. But if we're working for the team, I think we'll be willing to do those things. But if we're working just for ourselves, I think it's a lot more difficult. So
That's great. And organizations and teams from all over the country bring you in and they want you to speak to their employees and players and team members, and you talk about all kinds of different things, but what would you say if you were to boil down your message to one thing that you would want to share with people? When you try to go to these different places all over the country and share, what's your message?
It's about it's about what I talked about earlier. It's about that grit. The four things, and the driven by the faith component. Working for something bigger than ourselves, working for a greater purpose, and approaching adversity, any adversity we face. And actually, when we're working to achieve anything, there's going to be adversity along the way, and of various forms. But we can approach things with a growth mindset. We make the decision to be resilient, to prioritize our response to the adversity rather than focus on the adversity itself. And all we need to always follow through on our commitments to our teammates, our coworkers, and do what we said we would do, especially when our circumstances change. And the last thing, you got to think about the team first. Think about them. Thinking about how can we help the team, because think about the we first. We over me. Everyone's heard that, but when the we succeeds, when the we succeeds, the me succeeds too. And I think that if we have that solid foundation, if we're working, if we hang a hat on being a good team and hang our hat on, being the best we can be at our role, then I think we'll be successful. Because what I talk about is, so obviously I would have loved to play at Michigan, right, and be on the court with my guys in the big games versus Michigan State and Duke and whoever else it may have been. But who knows if I would have been on the court with him had this not happened. Since everything happened, if what I could do was help the team unload the bags from the road trips and the bus and the plane a little bit better, if I could rebound for guys in practice, if I could play dummy defense a little bit better, maybe that would help the guys that are actually playing in the games play a little bit better, right? And I'd like to think that every person on every team has a role, and we can all fill the roles to the best of our ability. Because what's the saying? A rising tide lifts all boats, right? Mm-hmm. If we can do our part a little bit better, if I could fill my role 1% better, maybe that would help my teammates fill their role 1% or 1% better, or 0.1% better for that matter. So yeah, that's essentially my message, just about doing what the team needs. And it's not always obviously I didn't look forward to, I wasn't on the plane, flying to play school, flying to play Wisconsin or Ohio State, but I was on the plane, oh man, I can't wait to unload these bags. But I took pride in what I could do, and if that's what I could do to help the team, if that's what the team needed from me, sometimes we just got to do what the team needs. So
when you look at your life, what is next for Austin Hatch? Where are you headed from here?
So I work in the corporate office at Domino's right now. And I'm here. I'm filling my role to the best of my ability, trying to help my teammates fill their role 1% better too, right? And really, I'm just more to focus on being a good husband, being a good father. Well, obviously not being a good father yet, but preparing to be a good father someday.
Were you trying to make an announcement on the podcast here today? Was that what that was all about?
Well, actually, so the first addition to our family is our golden retriever. He just had his first birthday.
Nice.
A couple weeks ago.
That's exciting.
So yeah. So that's I guess that's good practice, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, so we look forward to building our future one day at a time. And yeah, life is good, man. We're blessed, and yeah, look forward to exploring life and learning about more about ourselves and about each other, and about how we can help others too. So,
and the last question, when you look, when you think forward and when you look back on your life, however long that is from now, 100 years, let's say, what do you want people to say about Austin Hatch? What do you want them to say about who you were as a person?
First and foremost, I would want them to say I was a great husband. First I want them to say I honored God with my life. I want them to say I was a great husband and a great father. But after that, I think, just that, I think I've been given an extraordinary opportunity, right? And obviously I've lost a lot, but I think that the opportunity I've been given to overcome challenges is the opportunity to overcome the challenge that the plane crash has posed. I think that's an extraordinary opportunity I can use to help other people. And yeah, I think I want people to say that, I think that, that I didn't allow my circumstances to determine the course of my life, that I used the misfortune to help other people. Like I said about that team first mentality or that purpose, if we're working for something bigger than ourselves, if we're working for, to honor God or honor whatever you believe in, if we're working to be a great teammate, be the best teammate that we can be. I think if we take care of those things, I think we'll like where we end up in a few years.